we are thrilled to host Riley Keough for a one-of-a-kind conversation as she pays tribute to her mother, Lisa Marie Presley's incredible memory. Lisa Marie Presley was a singer and songwriter who was born in Memphis and raised at Graceland as the only child of Elvis and Priscilla Presley. She released 3 studio albums throughout her music career, To Whom It May Concern, Now What, and Storm and Grace, the first of which was certified gold. Lisa Marie passed away in January 2023. Riley Keough is an Emmy, Golden Globe, and Independent Spirit Award nominated actress. She is known for her work in Daisy Jones and the Six, Zola, and more. She also won the Best First Feature at Cannes and co-founded a production company, Felix Culpa, with Gina Gamel. She is the eldest daughter of Lisa Marie Presley and sole trustee of Graceland. Joining Riley in conversation is Gayle King. Gayle King is co-host of CBS Mornings. An accomplished journalist, King interviews top newsmakers and delivers original reporting to CBS Mornings and all CBS news broadcasts and platforms. She's also editor-at-large of Rosary DAILY, hosts Gayle King in the House, a live weekly radio show on Sirius XM, and co-anchors with Charles Barkley, King Charles, a weekly 1-hour primetime program on CNN. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Riley and Gayle to the stage.
She said, I'm just so used to it, I wonder would anybody be interested? We're very interested, aren't we? So I want to start with this. When did you know that you were part of a very famous family? When did you know this?
I get asked this all the time, but I don't think there was a moment where I realized it. I think it was just always
there.
Always there, and something I guess I was always aware of for as far back as I can remember.
Yeah, sometimes when I talk to children of famous people, they said they realize, well, how come everybody knows your name? Or why does everybody want your autograph? I didn't know if you had a moment like that. It was just your way of life.
Yeah, we were just so used to it. I mean, it was such a big, especially when I was little and in the 90s, my mom was very famous, so it was kind of, very present. So
yeah.
There wasn't a moment where I kind of, it was just what we were used to.
I want to establish a little bit about Riley's background before we get into the book. I want to talk about your mom's relationship with her mother, Priscilla Presley, because I remember when they got married and seeing Priscilla Presley, I thought she was so gorgeous. I remember when Lisa Marie was born, but they seem to have a very complicated relationship, Lisa Marie and Priscilla Presley. Can you just lay the groundwork for the audience before we get into the book about what that was?
I think that, well, for one, I think that my grandmother was very young when she had my mother.
Yeah.
My mother was a very specific type of person. And she was kind of wild and rebellious and unruly. And I think my grandmother's very, poised and wants things, they're just very different people, and I think my mom was just a very rebellious teenager and kid, and so I think she definitely gave her a hard time, and they had some moments, yeah.
And then I think it's important for the audience to understand the relationship that you had with your mother, with Lisa Marie, because Lisa Marie says in the book that the thing that she wanted more than anything and that brought her the most happiness was being a mother. So could you share the relationship that you had with your mom?
Well, we were extremely close. I think that she really wanted to have children and really wanted to make her children feel very loved. I think that in her life, she was searching for like unconditional love often, and I think she never wanted that for us. So she was extremely, you know, like a mama bear, kind of like very loving and very affectionate, and we were all very close, and yeah, and also we were friends as well.
And you were friends. And I think that's important. That will come up later. And there's a reason why I started the conversation that way. Because the name of the book is called From Here to the Great Unknown. And I thought, is that an Elvis song? Is that a movie? What does that mean? What does the title mean, and where did it come from?
It's a lyric in a song that he sang, and then she recorded a version with her singing with him. And it just, for me, represented, you know, at this point, my mother had passed, my brother had passed away, and From Here to the Great Unknown kind of felt like, I don't know, it just felt like it represented my, like where my kind of head has been at, I guess. Like, considering what happens when, you know, when people die and where they are, and kind of all those questions.
Yeah. You know, the thing about the book, Riley, that I think is so unique, guys, I've never read a memoir like this, is because we get to hear Lisa's voice in this book. You know, she had said, in the book she says, in her own words, she didn't understand how or why her story should be told, but she wanted to tell it. And that she wanted people to understand about her life and who she was. But it's unusual that you get to hear a person's voice as they're speaking. And so she came to you and said, I'd like your help in finishing this memoir. What was that conversation like? What did she say? And did you know she was going to make the tapes? Did you know that?
I think she'd already made the tapes at this point, because this was December, a month before she passed away.
Okay.
And she passed away in January, and the conversation was her saying, I don't want to write a book anymore.
I don't want to write a book
She
anymore.
just got tired of doing it. And she got tired of talking about herself. She wasn't interested in talking about herself. I think she felt, you know, she wasn't somebody that really wanted attention on her or liked. I think that she was kind of like, I wish someone else would write about me.
Yeah.
So she just said, asked me if I could help her, and kind of said, you know me the best. And
What did she want you to do, Riley? How did she want you to
I think it
help
was
her?
more of like she didn't know what to focus on, what she wanted to talk about, or like what the voice should be. And to me, it was just it should be, you know, authentic and just exactly her voice talking how it is.
But you know, when I was reading it, I thought, what a treasure for you that you have this. When my mom passed away, all I had was, in terms of her voice, because back then we had these things called answering machines. And you would call and say, you've reached 654-3676. I can still remember the number. This was before you even had area codes, guys. You just had the number. And she said, hi, it's Meg King, you've reached 654. And I used to just play that answering machine because that was the only thing I had of her voice. Because I always wanted to remember it. And as time faded, you know, I can't even really recall her voice the way I remember it. But you had hours and hours and hours of tapes, and I'm wondering if that was comforting to listen to, or hard to listen to, or how you felt when you were listening to it.
It was hard. I was kind of putting it off because I had them. I got sent them, and then I kind of one night just got the courage to start listening to them because I knew that I was gonna. At this point, I knew I was gonna complete her book for her. And so I just decided to do it, and I went to my room and I put my headphones in and I started listening, and like the tapes are numbered from like 1 to 16 or something, and I just started listening, and she starts at the beginning of her life.
She starts. She's a little kid.
Yeah, and it's sort of, she goes through her first memories, and so it was really emotional because I hadn't heard her talk since she passed at that time. And then as I kind of got through the first moment of grief in hearing her voice, she's so funny to me that a lot of it was spent like laughing at her. I mean she's nuts, so it's like.
You said that, I did not say that.
In the best way.
But I'm curious, the reason why this is fascinating to me is because she really she was brutally honest. She talked about her life, warts and all, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we'll get into some of that. And I'm wondering, at any point when you were listening to it, did you say, nope, I don't think I'm going to finish this. I don't want people to know this about you. I don't want people to know this about our family. Maybe it's better that it just stay in the family. It remains in the family lore, so to speak.
Well, I think that it's an interesting question because I think often when you grow up in this kind of situation, there's a lot of things you don't share with the public, and I think that you try and preserve things for yourself, and I mean everyone has a different approach, but my mom was very private, and she didn't particularly want to talk about her life in interviews and stuff, so I think her reason for wanting to share was to connect with people, and so that was kind of what drove me, is I could hear in the tapes how honest. I mean, she was someone who could not, she couldn't lie. She couldn't, she couldn't have a like fake conversation with someone. She was very uncomfortably honest. I think, and so I knew that if she was going to write a book, like she'd be honest about the things that, most things, everything.
So she talks about, you said my mom was a little, I think you said rambunctious. Some people said, it was more like a little terrorist in terms of, here she is 4 years old, and she has a golf cart.
Yeah.
And she's driving the golf cart, and she's running over people's toes. And she's doing this with such glee, she's just a happy little kid.
Yeah.
And she's running around, and she just really seemed to love life at 4 years old and loved being at Graceland. What did she tell you about growing up at Graceland?
Exactly that, which is in the book, that it was like this place of freedom for her, and she kind of ran the show there, and was allowed to do whatever she wanted, and I think she really liked that. So, me and my dad always talk about this, like her soul, she was like a queen since the moment she was born, and I think that at Graceland she could exercise that.
If she was mad, she's 4 years old, and she didn't like someone, or they'd done something, she said, I'm going to get you fired, and what would happen, Riley?
I don't know if she got people fired, I think it was more threats. I didn't hear of anyone actually getting fired.
Because at 4 years old, she said, nope, you better do X, Y, and Z, or I'll have you fired. And it became like a running joke in the household. But she suffered a lot at an early age. She was 9 when her dad died, which was, we know, Elvis Presley. And she said when she woke up that day, she felt something. She felt that there was something. It just didn't sit right with her. Even at the age of 9, she felt that there was something bad that was going to happen.
Yeah,
and she writes about that.
She did, and she was very perceptive as a person.
As a little kid.
As a kid, as an adult, her whole life. Like she just knew things. If someone was lying, she knew, which as a teenager was difficult. She knew when people were pregnant. Like she was very like intuitive.
But when she woke up, she felt something, and she sees her dad on the bathroom, and she actually sees him being carried out of the house. And I think at 9 years old, the effect that would have on you. Nobody ever really tells her what is happening.
Yeah.
So you see something that's so distressing and so upsetting, but no one ever tells her. What did she tell you about her dad's death?
She would just tell us the story. I don't remember the context in which she told it to us, but we heard it a lot, you know? It wasn't something she shared publicly until she wanted to write her book, but, or exactly, like her perspective of that day. But yeah, I mean, I grew up just kind of, you know, hearing about that.
Because you write, the thing that's so interesting, guys, about the book is that we hear Lisa Marie's voice, and you said you took the tapes verbatim, and then Riley writes her version of what Lisa was saying, or her version of what their life was. So it's interesting, you see the back and forth between the two of you. And I thought that that was a very interesting writing style. I've never seen anything like that before, but you write in your part that you believe that it took your mom many years to grieve. Why do you say that?
I mean, I think that grief is like a lifelong thing, you know? But I think for her, I don't think she really talked about the loss of her father. And I think that, like, I remember my dad kind of saying that throughout their whole marriage, she never really brought it up, you know?
She never talked about
Not really. So I think that maybe because, I don't know why, I think that I don't know if it was because like the world was grieving that she didn't feel, I don't understand it, to be honest, but I do know that it was something she kept very close.
Yeah, that she internalized.
She internalized a lot, yeah.
You said, you write in the book that sometimes you would find her in the room crying, listening to her dad, listening to Elvis's music, and that you felt that she really never really processed it. Do you believe that she never really did? It must be hard if you can't or haven't talked about it.
I think when I look at like the things that happened and how the only times I really saw her in grief were like when she'd been drinking or after a long like party or something like that. She wouldn't really feel that sober, you know. So I think that it was something that she just didn't feel, you know, until later in life. And I think that once she was in her 40s, she started realizing, like, I don't think I processed that what happened. And she would start saying things like that. And yeah.
You know, you talk about, and your mom went through a lot too. I think people don't understand, you know, betrayal of friends who sold her out, who would record her and sell pictures. She talks about sexual assault by her mom's boyfriend at a very young age. She went through a lot that people really didn't understand, but when she was 17, she met Danny Keough, your dad, and she knew right away that she felt she had very strong feelings for him. What did she tell you about meeting your dad and what that relationship was like?
Well, she writes about that in the book, and it's so funny to me. But I think they both just thought each other were too cool for one another. Yeah. And then they fell in love. But I think that what always stuck with me were two things. The first thing was that she always said that she knew that if she had children with him, that it would always be okay. There would never be any issues if they were to separate or if anything were to happen. And so that was always in my mind when I was thinking about having kids, because, you know, I don't know, that was the example she said. And then the second thing was, once they, you know, when they did split up, when they were divorced, the way that they handled that, which is that, you know, he kind of lived with us and on and off my whole life, and they were very close.
Yeah. Your dad was always in your life.
Yes.
Keough was always in your life.
Yeah, and if my mom would go on tour, my dad would stay home with us, and they were very, very close, like family. So I think that also, I don't know, dictated the way that I have dealt with my own relationships in my life, and I just thought it was really beautiful how they were able to do that.
But she said one of the happiest days of her life was when Danielle Riley Keough was born, because your Riley is actually your middle name.
Yes.
And she said that it was her lifelong dream to be a mother. And so what is it like for you? Because I love looking at the pictures of you as a baby, and Danny and Lisa, Marie, and you, knowing how happy she was when you entered her life. What that means to you to hear that. To hear your mom say that about you.
She told me that, you know.
What did she tell you? Tell us what she told you.
She's
We want
such
book,
a
chapter,
good
verse,
interviewer.
right? What did you say?
You're such a good interviewer. Not letting me skirt by things. She just always would tell, you know, she wrote a song when I was born, I think called like Give Me the Strength. And it was a very sweet song, which I have still, that she never put out or anything, but she recorded it with my dad. And it basically, it was just a really sweet song. And she just was the kind of mom who would constantly let us know that, you know, how much she loved
That you
us.
were loved.
Yeah.
Somebody's alarm went off. It's time to take a pill. Well, everyone that does that, you set your alarm and say, don't forget to take a pill. But you know, I think too, when you think about your mom singing the song, right, it's a very sweet story in the book that you had your own daughter, you're a mom yourself, to Tupelo, I love the name Tupelo. So your favorite daughter is Tupelo, and that you found yourself singing to Tupelo the way your mom would sing to you, and you hadn't thought about that in many years.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing, because I write about this in the book, but like when she was born, I just was saying things and doing things that were from, you know, the way my mom would speak to us when we were little, and it was an unconscious thing, but it would just kind of, you know, just come out of me, and I thought that was really beautiful, because your like parenting stays, you know, in your children.
Didn't that surprise you though? Because I remember I would say to my mom, when I have kids, I am never going to be too tired to drive them someplace. Everybody asks me to drive, I'm never going to say I'm too tired. What's the big deal about driving? You just get in the car and move your feet. It's not hard. And I will never tell my kids because I said so. I will always take the time to answer their questions. And then you have children, and then it's because I said so. I'm too tired. But it reminded me of that in the book when you said you found yourself doing things that your mom used to do that you thought, wow, where's this coming from?
Songs and phrases and things that, you know, just like came out of me, that I found to be really sweet. But yeah, I mean, you definitely have ideas about how motherhood's going to be, and then the real thing is.
And then it happens.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, their marriage did not work out, but they still seem to be very connected.
Yeah.
I think, I recall in the book, he was actually with her when she died, wasn't he? Was Danny with her when she died?
He was, Danny and her mother
Were with her when she died. That's the point I'm making. They still remain very close. But that marriage did not work out, but then she married Michael Jackson. And I don't know about you guys, but we all remember Lisa Marie Presley marrying Michael Jackson. The whole world was like, huh? Because it just seemed, even Priscilla in the book says, Lisa Marie writes, my mom called and said, they say you married Michael Jackson. That can't be true, and it turns out it was true. We all had that reaction, like what in the world is happening? But she makes it very clear that this was a real relationship. And I'd like you to talk about that, what you remember about that.
I remember everything. I have a really incredible memory, which is
How old were you
this book.
How old were you at the time?
I was 6. I was 6, and I remember when my mom told me her and my father were getting a divorce. I remember it was just.
Well, let's back up. When she told you that they were getting a divorce, did you know what that meant?
When she told me that they were going to get divorced, I thought that meant, I remember saying, he's not going to be my dad anymore. So that was the concept, like that was my understanding of what she was saying when I was 6. I just remember her saying, no, that's not him, of course he's your dad, you know. I don't know, but then shortly after, you know, he was still sleeping in the house, and, you know, so it was, it was very, you know, a very soft divorce.
Soft
Like, it wasn't aggressive.
A soft divorce.
Yeah.
Okay. I know, that would be if you're 6, we're divorced, but we're living in the same house. This is a different kind of divorce.
Yeah.
But they did in fact get a divorce.
They did.
And then she marries Michael Jackson pretty soon after that.
Yes.
And so when she said she was married, hey, did you know Michael Jackson was Michael Jackson?
That's a good question. No.
You didn't?
I knew, no.
Did you just think this is mom's friend, mom's
No, I knew
boyfriend?
they were together.
You
She
knew they
told
were
us,
together.
yeah.
Okay.
But I was aware he was famous,
Yeah.
and she was famous. We would go to the shows, like we would go to his concerts, so I knew he was, you know, I was aware of the situation. He was a singer. And my first concert was Janet Jackson, and she took us there. And yeah, so I knew that he was also famous, but I didn't know his music before they got together.
But
That I'm aware of. I'm sure I heard him already.
but I love that Lisa wanted everybody to know this was a real relationship, because some people thought it was a publicity stunt, some people thought it was all for show, some people thought it was a sham, but
Yeah.
she
I mean,
writes,
it was like I was there, and it was definitely a real relationship.
it was definitely a real relationship. So real that Lisa Marie and Michael would drive you guys to school.
Yeah.
You can picture that, Lisa Marie, Michael Jackson, and you say, sometimes a chimpanzee would be in the car.
That was one time. One time, and it would hang from the curtains and right down our curtains. Yeah.
You also make a point of saying the chimpanzee's name was not.
It wasn't Bubble. It was a different one. It was a little baby one. Yeah, I mean, it was just like a normal, you know, relationship. I was right in there. She says backstage, I don't know if people are going to be interested in this story, because it really isn't. Yeah, people were very interested, but it was a normal relationship. For me, it was normal. For others, I understand this is not normal. Yeah, we called him Mimi because my brother couldn't say Michael, so he ended up saying Mimi. Yeah.
And you said sometimes Michael would sing. I think I lost my.
Yeah.
You said that Michael would sometimes sing to you guys. He had a song for each of you.
Yeah.
For Marie,
Yeah.
for Ben, and for you. Do you remember what the song was?
Yeah, he sang You Are Not Alone to me in the car on the way to school. And he would sing Ben, the Jackson 5 song to my brother. And to my mom, he would sing the like Simpsons Lisa birthday song. Randomly. Yeah.
Did you like him? Did you think that this is a...
I did.
As your stepdaughter?
I did. I said this today, but I've had a few stepfathers. But I've cared for all of them, you know. I really did care for Michael, and he felt like a father figure to us. So,
Thank you.
yeah, that was my experience anyway.
Then, you know, you said you had a few stepfathers, because they were married. How long were they married, Michael
I
and
think it was like a year, but they kind of had this like on and off thing for a few years, because we would go see him, and the guy was so young that I didn't understand like exactly what was going on, but I think they were like back and forth even after they divorced kind of thing. Because I remember we went over there, you know, and he already had children, so I think that it was a little blurry, like what was happening in their relationship.
But they still maintained a friendship too.
They did for a
still-
while,
Yeah.
but then I think at some point my mom stopped talking to him, and I think it was.
Do you know why she stopped talking to
I
you?
think that the end of their relationship got a little bit like, I don't know. I think that it didn't end well, and I think ultimately a lot of my mom's because she would try and protect her heart, you know?
Yeah.
So I think
She seemed to always, in the book, she always seemed to be searching for something.
yes.
You know, searching for love, searching for contentment. Did you feel that from her?
I think she was, I think she was searching for love, but I don't think she knew she was. And I think that she really wanted friends and relationships that were authentic, and I think that was hard for her, just because of the nature of her, situation.
Yeah, I know. This is the thing, Riley, that got to me, because on the outside looking in, you think she's Elvis Presley's daughter, she lives in Graceland, that, she would have a perfect world, but I felt, when I was reading, I thought, who is protecting her? She writes that the day that Elvis died, all of a sudden there were all sorts of people, family and friends in the house just taking stuff. She was just watching all that happen, and nobody was really taking care of her or paying attention to her. And I found that so hard to hear.
Yeah, I think that is the heartbreaking part for me with her story, is that I think she did feel very lonely a lot.
Yeah.
Not when she had kids, I think that her kids were her best friends.
Yeah, not with her kids, you're saying?
Yeah.
No.
But prior to having children,
Prior to that.
yeah. And she did have good relationships in her life. She did have good friends and some good relationships and people she loved a lot who really loved her. It's not that she didn't have that, there were relationships she had that, where I think she was truly loved and, and friendships that were really meaningful. But I think that, she was, I think that it was always hard and it would kind of end often.
But after the divorce from Michael, and before she remarried, there was a brief marriage with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
And until I read the book, I forgot about that, actually.
When I was writing the book, I forgot about that.
I forgot about that too.
It was a brief moment.
It was very
So brief.
It was very brief. I mean, I don't even think it was.
Just 4 months.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't even think it was a year.
But it was memorable, we had a lot of fun and he was fun and, they liked to.
Yeah, there again, I just think she was kind of searching. But after the divorce with Michael and Nicolas Cage, she was single for about 10 years before she.
She was never single.
Well, before she married Michael Lockley.
Yes.
She was never single. But she writes that that 10-year period were some of the happiest of her life.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that, what you remember about that. I loved reading that it was a very happy time for her.
Yeah, I think that's something I like to remind people of, because I know that the book is very sad. And, most of our lives were really fun, and she was, she was happy. It wasn't like, the end of her life was
It was tough, yeah.
And the beginning was heartbreaking, but in the middle, it was a lot of fun. And we had a house, and she had this amazing home for us, and she had a bunch of friends living with her, and a bunch of very good friends who loved her dearly, and it was just like fun. It was very fun. Like everything was like a.
Yeah, I liked reading that there was happy times for her because, that she went through a period where she was addicted to opioids, and that happened after giving birth to your brother Ben. She had C-section.
My sisters.
Your sisters,
Yeah.
Not Ben, your sisters, and it was the C-sections were very painful.
Yeah.
She became addicted to opioids, and it got to the point where you would see some of that addiction, and you would see that she was in great distress and wasn't feeling so well. And it seems a couple of times you even tried to intervene by calling doctors and saying, look, stop it.
Yeah. It's a weird thing because.
Yeah, and how old were you? You were early 20s.
25.
25.
When it was a problem. And it's a weird thing because she had so much awareness around her father's addiction, and and how it happened. And she, you know, yeah. So when she started, you know, taking I mean, this is such a common story in the world.
The cycle repeats itself.
Yeah, and also that people get addicted to opiates, like they're very addictive, and later in life too. Like I think it happens often after a surgery or that kind of thing. But I also think there was this like underlying thing there when I look back, where she would kind of say, you know, my dad died at this age, and now I'm this age, and you know, I think there was an awareness of like
of life,
yeah, and I think she kind of knew that was going to happen. She would also kind of say things like, if I was ever to do drugs, like I wouldn't just like dabble, you know, like
Did you say that? I wouldn't just dabble.
Yeah, she was like, they would take me out, kind of thing.
She said that.
Yeah.
That they would take me out.
Yeah.
You know, and you always thought, and she always worried about that actually, after seeing what happened to her dad. And then I look at you, Riley, because your mom is going through it. You reach out to doctors to say, stop giving it to her. But as often happens with celebrities, doctors sometimes don't always follow the rules when it comes to celebrities.
Yeah.
And you tried to intervene.
I did, yeah, a few times. And I mean, she was a hard person to
Say
control.
No. Yeah.
And she did what she wanted to do, and you know, and I tried my best. And
Yeah.
at some point, I mean, this is true with many addicts. It's like it's so hard to get out of that one to do, but she did, you know, and that's what was also incredible. Is she did end up, you know, off of narcotics, and I didn't think she would.
You
So-
didn't? You didn't think she'd be able to?
And there were certain moments where I kind of went, okay, like she does not want to. She doesn't want to go to rehab. And then turned around and she did.
And then I look at you, Riley, at such a young age, because your mom's going through it, but then your brother Ben too also gets into trouble with drugs, and even says before he took his own life that I think that I'm having mental health problems. What did you see what was happening to him? And I'm wondering how you're handling your mom and your brother and you.
Yeah, at the time I wasn't, to be honest, that worried about him.
You were not.
No. In hindsight, my perspective is different, but at the time, he felt like I wasn't more concerned about him than I was some friends I have that drink a bit. And he didn't do like loads of drugs. He was more like a drinker. Sometimes he would like, I think, do drugs if he was really drunk or that kind of thing, but alcohol was like his thing. And I wasn't worried about him. I had moments where he would get too drunk and I was kind of like, okay, or he'd kind of go to bender for a few days, but he always came back. And
You two were very close.
yeah.
Ben, you call him,
Yeah.
You two were very
And
close.
we were very close, and so that was probably the craziest shock to me, because I would have assumed that if something was wrong, he would tell
He
me.
would have told you.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He didn't really say anything to anyone. I mean, he's at a birthday party in the house, and you write, and you said, no one heard the gunshot. I just thought that was such a dramatic way that you go, no one heard the gunshot because it's in the middle of a party.
Yeah, it was a crazy thing. I mean, they weren't that far away, and nobody heard. So it was about, I think, 5 or 6 people left. Like it was late in the night, and yeah, nobody.
So were you stunned literally when he took his life? That was just the furthest thing. And you know, when in some families they say, well, we always worried about this. This wasn't something. That
No,
you
it
were
wasn't
worried
at
about.
all. And in fact, it really changed my awareness on suicide, because he felt like there was no history of you know, in my experience, like severe depression or mental health, you know, at a level where I felt concerned anyway. So it was just very shocking to me, and to everybody.
And then your main concern, in addition to dealing with your own grief, you're worried about your mom, because your mom and Ben were extremely close. You know, she writes comparing to Elvis's, it was always well documented how close Elvis was to his mother. They had a very special bond, and she would say that she and Ben were also exceptionally close. And that was your main concern. How is your mom going to handle this? You were worried that she would relapse, but she did not.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the things I'm most proud of her for, is that my brother passed away and she never, you know, she didn't relapse, and she didn't take drugs or anything. And I just didn't expect that from what we'd been through a few years prior, you know. And I think that she did that for him.
For him?
Yeah. Just stayed sober for him, like to be, because she knew that he would have wanted that.
Wanted that.
Yeah.
You know, and then that's where the book takes a little bit of a turn, in that Ben is dead and your mom still wasn't able to let go. She didn't want to say goodbye to him, so she was able to convince, what was it, the medical examiner?
Yeah, I'm gonna reframe this a little bit.
Okay.
She wasn't like a mother who was like, you know, saying, I'm not letting go of my son, keep him in the house. She was like, what are you gonna do with him? And why can't I have him here?
In the house.
Yeah, like you're gonna put him in the building, like why can't I have him here? Like it's sort of like the part of her that was kind of like could have whatever she wanted. It was kind of like she didn't
Most people don't keep dead bodies in the house.
I think she just didn't understand like that she got what she wanted.
Oh, okay.
You know, so she was kind of like, well, it's my son. Like if he's gonna be in your building, he can be in my house.
Did that seem normal to you?
No, it didn't seem normal, but it also like wasn't, we didn't know how long it would be.
Yeah, but she convinced a medical examiner. They said, okay, as long as she kept him on dry ice,
Yeah.
the temperature was 55 degrees.
She basically, like, they taught her what they do at their thing,
At the
the
morgue.
morgue. And the funeral home owner was like a mother, and she kind of, I think she offered it, from my memory, like you can, you know, if you do the things, you can just keep him here, and it just kind of extended because it was COVID, and we didn't really know where we were gonna bury him, if we was gonna go to Hawaii, and if family could travel, so it just kind of lingered.
But you know what? It was oddly comforting to her
Yeah.
to have him
Oh,
there.
for sure. You know,
Yeah.
like she does talk about, she did, you know, she, of course, she wanted time to process his death, you know, so there was that too, you know. I just think that it was more, you know, it was more that she just couldn't imagine him being anywhere else.
Anywhere else.
You know,
with her.
as a mother.
Ben had tattoos, your name, her name, and then she decided she wanted to get the same tattoo his name on her body.
Yeah.
The tattoo artist comes over.
Yeah.
I'll let you tell this part of the story.
Oh God, this is the headline.
Well, I can honestly say I've never heard of a story like this before.
I know, some people told me not to put this in the book, but here we are. She wanted the tattoo that he had on his hand, and she said, can we get a tattoo artist to come over and tattoo the tattoo he has? So my husband called this guy, he knew, because my husband has a lot of tattoos. And he came over, and my mom showed a picture of the tattoo that she wanted, and he put the little like sticker on her hand, and she didn't think it looked right, and she kind of looked at me and said, like, I don't think his was, she wanted it exactly what his was.
Yeah.
And I think she was kind of like, well, his was, you know, a little bit lower and more like in the middle of the thumb and the finger, and I couldn't remember. I was kind of like, I don't know. And we were just sitting there, and she was like, well, I can show you.
To the tattoo artist, and he's like, okay.
And I was sitting there, like,
Actually, in the book, you said you gave her the what the beep look, and you said your mom ignored that. Yes.
yeah, didn't give me any time of day, you know, didn't even acknowledge me, and proceeded to, you know, take him into the room and said, you know, he said he was fine with it.
Can you imagine, Ronnie, this guy comes home and he's gonna say, you're not gonna believe what I just saw today. You're not gonna believe it.
He was kind of an eccentric, he's a kind of an eccentric guy, so I'm hoping that it wasn't too traumatic, but yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, but I also think it just shows the depth of the love that she had for her son. But I'm wondering, when all this was happening, were you upset about this, or you just think whatever we need to do to get her through?
We were all, in the same boat with his loss. I would actually say that I was suffering. I was having a harder time in moments than she was, and her and my dad kind of stepped up and were doing a lot of I was kind of like down for the count for like 4 months, and I was typically the one that was like handling everything, and I just couldn't do it.
You said on this one I can't do it.
Yeah,
You guys
so-
have to do it.
Yeah, so my mom and dad were actually like kind of lifting me up a bit, to be honest. So she was just trying to be, they were, handling the service and doing all that. Like I didn't participate because I struggled.
And how are you doing after the death of your mom and your brother? As we sit here today in 2020, because you have been through a lot yourself, and I wonder who takes care of you, who helps you.
Yeah. I'm really lucky. I have a wonderful husband and father and friends. Like I have a lot of very good friends, and sisters, and so there's a lot of us.
Michael Lockwood, her marriage to Michael Lockwood, they have twins. I think the twins are 16.
Yes, it was
15,
just their
16.
birthday. So I have I'm really lucky in that sense. It's I'm sure a lot of people have experienced grief. It's kind of always there.
I know you said grief it's not really something you overcome, it's just something you live with when it comes to grieving and dying. Dying.
So I kind of just have surrendered. I don't try and fight it or push it away, or I just kind of let it be. And if I feel like crying, I cry. If I feel fine, I'm fine. So I just try and stay very present with what I feel.
You also have really beautiful memories with your brother Ben. You guys had gone to Japan, one of Lisa Marie's favorite places, and yellow's my favorite color, so maybe that's why it stood out to me. But you talk about these pair of yellow tennis shoes that you wore, and that he really loved those yellow tennis shoes.
Yeah.
And what you did with the yellow tennis
Yeah.
shoes.
I had the yellow shoes, and he wanted them, and I kind of kept promising them to him, and I never got them for him, so I put them in his casket.
Yeah, I was very touched by that. I want people to know the joy that your mom had after your daughter Tupelo was born,
Yeah.
and that you didn't describe it as a night nurse, but she sort of became the night nurse. So
She
that
was for a few days, and then she left for Hawaii.
but she was trying to help you and Danny out so that you two could see, because anybody knows when there's a new baby in the house.
Yeah, it was the sweetest
I mean, you
thing.
and Ben, that you
Yeah.
and Ben could sleep, yes.
She, her and my dad would come at I don't remember what time it was, midnight or 8 or something. We kept doing different shifts, and we would sleep, because I had this thing when I had the baby for the first time as a new parent where I didn't want anyone to not be watching her sleep. So I was just staring at her all night for 4 nights, and then my mom was like, you need to go to bed.
What were you looking for?
Just making sure she was okay. I don't know, I just, it was so scary. And so then my mom and dad were like, you need to go to sleep. So they would come over together and watch her for 4-hour shifts, 5-hour shifts, and then we would swap.
I know, and did you like to see that side of them together bonding over your baby girl?
Yeah, it was the sweetest thing, especially if they were doing it together. They were living together at the time, so it was very cute.
No, they were, even in the end, they were ultimately still together. They want me to do questions from the audience. This is from Erin. She says, has the journey of releasing this book for your mother influenced the way you view motherhood for yourself?
In releasing the book?
Influence the way that you view motherhood for yourself?
I think that, definitely. I think that I'm always comparing myself to my mother because I felt she was such a good mother that I'm always kind of going, I hope that I am can be as good of a mother, and that my child feels as loved. It was hard. It was kind of like a hard act to follow in terms of mother, because she was such a great mother,
Despite everything, because from the outside looking in, her life was so tumultuous.
Yeah,
She'd been through so much crap.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, you still see her as a good mother.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's how you feel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
That's important.
yeah.
This is from Stephanie. Your mom sang about going back to Graceland and Lights Out. How do you feel when you go back to Graceland? How often do you go to Graceland, by the way?
I've been going a lot recently for different things.
And the crowds are still there. They still come.
Every day. Which is, wonderful, because it brings life into the house, so I go kind of a lot at the moment. Before my mom passed, probably like once a year or twice a year, depending on if I could make it when she went. But now I go a lot. And
What do you do when you go there?
Well, it's usually I'm doing something, so I sit with Oprah, normal stuff.
Yes, the special was great last night. The
Yeah.
special was great.
But typically I'll go and start doing whatever kind of work thing I have to do, and then I'll go visit my mom and my brother.
Oh, their graves are, their graves.
Yeah. At some point, at first, it can be a little it takes me a minute to kind of,
And Elvis is there too. How does Elvis sit with you? You never got a chance to meet him. How does he factor into your life? Do you listen to his songs? Do you watch his movies? Do you think about him?
I do think about him. I felt him so much through my mom and through her grief and her experience and her story. So it was always emotional. I think that her missing him, affected me and my siblings too. So I think that we all felt emotional when we would see him or hear his voice. And also, like, my family all look like each other. So it's kind of like all the faces look similar, so they might be each other.
They have a very similar
It's like
look.
he looks like my brother, and so it's like it's all very enmeshed.
It's in your DNA. Why do you think, Riley, that you never had an issue with drugs or alcohol, or were able to survive what so many in your family did not?
I don't know.
No?
I don't know. I think that I don't like the feeling of being out of control. So I never really liked, substances. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It's weird. I have a lot of addiction in my family.
I know. I didn't know if you had ever thought about that.
I have thought about it, but I don't know
I don't know the answer.
Don't know the answer.
Sarah asked this. Who do you hope readers will feel or experience when they read the book as it pertains to navigating their own family histories and traumas? You mentioned in the book that you guys didn't even mention the word trauma until maybe 2021, but what do you want readers to experience or feel?
That's a good question. I think she just wanted to write a book so that she could relate to people, and that they could, feel not so alone in this world, and know that she's also gone through these experiences, and so just human connection. That's what she wanted. So I hope that that's what happens, because that's.
Jillian asked, your favorite piece of advice or saying that your mom said to you? It still stays with you.
Advice. Oh my gosh, that's a good question. It's not one thing. I hear her voice all the time. Like, yeah, just mostly yelling at me. But it's get your feet off the table, her thing, good manners stuff. A lot of that's in my head.
Was her dying a shock to you? It was a shock to the world. I remember when that became a news story. It was a shock to us. Was it a shock to you?
No.
No? How come?
I think that I just felt that from her addiction through my brother's passing, I felt that she had she wasn't gonna like give up actively, but I felt that she had too much pain. And I think that, I don't know, yeah, it wasn't a surprise. I think there were a few times where I kind of would think, oh, like, is this the day kind of thing. And it wasn't, she wasn't on drugs or anything, so it wasn't that. It was just,
You say you think she died of you always believe she would die of a broken heart.
yeah, I do. I think that whatever the physical reason is, is what it is. I think that her body just kind of let go.
And 2 more questions. Mariana says, what was your favorite part of this writing process? Was it therapeutic or was it tough?
It was tough.
Yeah.
There were moments that were really fun and funny and that I really loved. And my dad is with me all the time, so we'd be writing, and sometimes it would be like, let's ask Danny, and I'd call random people and ask them, questions, and that was really fun. But a lot of it was tough. Yeah.
Yeah. I would think I was just blown away by hearing your mom's voice.
Yeah.
And then, last question, what's your favorite Elvis Presley song? Do you have one?
Oh my gosh.
And
That's
why?
really
Do you
hard.
have one?
That's a really hard question. Probably How Great Thou Art. And I think because it was one of my mom's favorites.
How Great Thou Art.
Yeah.
There's a funny story in the book that you guys were somewhere and an Elvis Presley person was singing Suspicious Minds.
Yeah.
And Lisa went up to him to say, Lisa Marie went up to him to say, you did a good job or something, and he just kind of blew her off.
Yeah.
She was quite offended.
Yeah. She was like, how dare you?
She had a couple of choice words for her because she was very complimentary. He's like,
I think she said like arrogant prick or something. I think it's in the book, the exact words that I came up with.
It is. And I'd like to close because your mom was a singer too. And people would often talk about her voice. So was Ben. Ben was a singer too. And we thought that we would end this conversation with what you said was one of your mom's favorite songs that she's playing as we walk up. What is it and why?
Oh, yes. Storm and Grace is about my brother. And yeah, it was, she loved the song because she loved him so much. So that was the choice of song.
And then when will we see Riley back on screen?
I mean, I work a lot. Just kidding.
I just saw
probably
the
next
Chanel
year.
show singing, and we know you can sing.
Yeah. Probably like next year, yeah.
All right, Riley. But in the meantime, you can enjoy being the #1 best-selling author.